Here's a tip. Before purchasing a room, give it a once-over with this, the Stink Finder. Designed by the folks at Stink Free, the Stink Finder reveals sources of biological contamination and helps you identify them with this handy key. Just turn it on, scan the bed, and the stains will appear like magic. Let's see. Blood, urine, vomit, semen, feces. Jesus Christ, who's staying here? Bill Clinton?
Hello, listening people.
Hello.
How are you, Mr. Voice?
And I'm Bartek.
And my name is How Are You, Mr. Voice? First name, How Are You? Last name, Mr. Voice.
Sounds like an old school TV show name.
It
How are you, Mr. Voice?
It sounds like one of those old Japanese shows where they're like, and we are Secret Agent Man. Hello, Mr. Voice. And goodbye, Mrs. Face.
Which means, I heard what you said and I've met you.
So I'm Ryan, and that's Bartek. Spitting Polish, always spitting, always Polish. Could you share a piece of Polish knowledge with us, Bartek? To reaffirm our state in the Polish podcasting community.
Yes, we are. I think we're still number 4.
I hope so. I hope no one's kicked us off. I got an email recently, actually, letting us know, just fun fact, that we're doing well in Sweden's ranking on the Apple thing.
Okay.
We're doing well. Didn't tell us how far, but just Sweden's liking us.
I wonder which episode kicked off that trend.
I don't know. Maybe it will be this one. Even kicks it off more. Any Polish trivia, fun fact, information, updates?
Poland is near Sweden.
Oh, there you go. Is it available to invade it easily?
I think it's just north.
Okay,
Maybe.
well, here we are. We are talking about something this month, Bartek. This is our monthly show in which we talk about a television show.
Yeah, we had to do that because we're not physically in the same room.
But now we are. But we didn't know we were going to be when we were doing this.
This is like the third episode of this show that we've done in the same room.
We talked about... did we talk about Twin Peaks?
Twin Peaks
in person.
And
Double the Fist.
And Double the Fist.
Yeah, so it's been a while since we've talked about TV shows in person. The TV show of discussion this week is... Bartek, could you tell us?
It is Gerhard Reinke's Wanderlust.
You have a real hard time. Gerhard Reinke.
Gerhard Reinke's Wanderlust.
Wanderlust.
From 2003, I think.
Yes, indeed it is. So we are talking about this television show, one that I dare say few people have seen, especially of our age demographic at least. I would say that this is definitely one that has been forgotten in the sands of time. Whether that is justifiable or not, we'll discuss it. But since we are discussing it, we'll be talking about it in details. This is a comedy show. How would you pitch this show, Bartek? What would you say the idea of this show? What is Gerhard Reinke's Wanderlust?
So this is a mockumentary-style travel show, which is starring a character, and that character, which is the main gimmick of this travel show, is a German man with incredibly bad luck, is incredibly ignorant about a lot of things. Sorry, I'm getting choked up.
He's naively ignorant.
He's naively ignorant, and just a lot of things just keep going wrong for him.
Sometimes it's his own fault, sometimes it's just the nature of the beast, and each episode is him going to a location. So this week it's Ireland, and he's going to have a little arc in that episode about wanting to be a writer and falling in love and all this kind of stuff. And then the next one is the Andes, and it's this fictitious character going around these countries and making this travel show, with some of it feeling like that level of... did the people involved around him know? And if they did, how much so? And obviously most of this is staged as characters. Steven Spielberg's in it. But some of it is from just the outlook of it, just looking at it. Some of it is well, those are the real people who live here and they're being roped into this. Do they know that this is a fictitious comedy show, or are they thinking this is just some goofy German travel show? You're, not to put too fine of a point on it, but is this a Borat situation where they think this funny foreign man is making a travelogue show? That's not as heavy a portion of it, but there is that little element within this show.
Yeah.
That is definitely prevalent. He's not pranking people, but there is that element of, are they in on this?
And even if that element is there, he is very much the butt of most of the jokes.
Mm-hmm. So, Gerhard Reinke's Wanderlust. Evidently, you are not very familiar with this because you can barely remember the title and or pronounce it. You're having
It's
a
mostly
struggle.
the pronunciation, yeah.
I watched this show when it came out as a small child. My parents were like, "You're old enough to watch Gerhard," and I guess I was, because I watched it for this. I haven't watched it in a while. I remembered I watched it a few years back, probably like 5 or 6 years back, when I found out it was on YouTube for whatever reason. This is a Comedy Central show as well.
Yeah.
So it's very odd that this is so freely available. Like, I can understand when we did Double the Fist. Okay, this is a little Australian show. The ABC's not going to give a shit. But like Comedy Central, they crack down on shit.
Yeah,
These big American, they crack down on these networks. They usually get like, no, you're not going to have a Saturday Night Live sketch unless we upload it on Saturday Night Live channel.
Yeah, the uploads on YouTube end with like ads for really big Comedy Central shows like South Park and The Chappelle Show.
And Crank Yankers,
Yeah.
which the actor of Gerhard and the central creator was a writer for.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting? So if you're watching Gerhard, then next would be Crank Yankers. You're getting the same guy kind of transitioning through in a way, but you don't realize it unless you look at the notes. So I watched this show when I was young, and I had not seen it until when it was uploaded on YouTube for quite some time. And what I remembered about it was, it was goofy, but for some reason, and I think again this is probably because of the Borat influence, I remembered it being gross. I was like, oh, that was a really gross show. Like, this is going to be like vile. I thought, oh, this is going to be vile. And I said to my wife, Rachel, I don't think you're going to like Gerhard Reinke. I think it's going to be too gross for you. And then I watched the show and I was like, where was that coming from? Because this is like so innocent and so pure. Like, Gerhard has his really, really aggressive moments because he gets angry and frustrated, but it's not as if he is doing what Sacha Baron Cohen is doing, or these type of, we've got a goofy character. It's not Miles Barlow, where it's like he's getting into these really dire, gross situations. They're always just kind of really silly, naive, goofy, very light comedy affairs with like little adult things in here. Like his testicle is always hanging out and it's pixelized, and there's always like a sexual undercurrent to the show in some way because of how he pronounces words and his general demeanor as a person. Gerhard is kind of like optimistic child, but also slightly horny, but not really. It's kind of a weird mishmash of things. So I walked in going, okay, this is going to be gross. I thought, like, even though I watched it a couple of years back, I kind of still recollect of what my feelings were on it when I was a child, because there was this level of, this is a little rude. I'm watching something a little rude, even though I was watching South Park and shit by that point, But it's not really, and that was a fun journey for me rewatching it for this episode, was being like, oh, Gerhard's so nice. Because this type of character usually isn't.
Yeah.
Usually it would be the Sacha Baron Cohen attempt, where it would be like, he's an asshole, or he's doing mean things, or saying really rude things. Like, Gerhard doesn't say really rude things. He just is naive to the point of an idiot. What did you think of this?
I didn't love it. I thought it was just generally okay, but I really appreciate how consistent it is with having something funny going on. Like, I don't know that you can take any 15-second segment of the entire show and not have at least like 2 or 3 things that are, doing a comedic something.
Wow, I'm you know what? I always have a hard time gauging you, because I was watching this going, oh, this is such a Bartek show. Oh, I can imagine him getting a good chuckle and a good time out of this show, because also, I didn't pitch this to Bartek at any point. I just linked him this. Here, watch this. We're going to talk about this. No prep. Just kind of like, man, watch this. And you see the title, and you're like, what the fuck's this? You must have been like, what is this? Because I don't think I've ever mentioned Gerhard Reinke's Wanderlust at any point in our friendship. It's just kind of like...
No, you haven't.
So I can just imagine you sitting at your home and then you get a link thrown at you. Gerhard Reinke's Wanderlust. We're going to be watching this, Bartek. Have fun.
It was like a full message about various things, and then at one point it's just like, by the way, you want to talk about this? And I just said, okay.
And then I said K, just letter K, because I'm being snide, and a full stop because that means it's serious.
Yeah, I was thinking of putting a KK there, but I was like, Ryan's being serious. Maybe I won't joke around.
You should have put 3. So you felt like this was okay, didn't blow your socks off, but you like the fact that it was dedicated to the comedy. Like, it's always gag after gag after gag, and something is always happening.
There's always something, trying to be funny or being funny. That sounded backhanded, but it's always being a comedy.
It's got a breakneck pace, for sure. That first episode in particular, it's like, wow, it's just moving.
Yeah, I feel like the whole thing was just moving.
See, I watched it differently to you. You watched it all in one sitting. You watched all 6 episodes in practically one sitting, yes?
Yeah, I slept between first and second, but otherwise, yes.
I watched 2 episodes a day, so I spread it out over 3 days, and I was like, okay, this is breakneck, but I kind of got into the rhythm of it, like, okay, I can understand where it goes. So by the time we get to the later episodes, it didn't feel like as quickly paced as like that first one, because it's like, whoa, okay, I'm getting back in. Like, the show immediately starts and he's like, hello, it's me, and he's like treating it like you should know who he is, and that you know his show, and we're going to be traveling to, and he spins the globe and he says where he's going to go, and then it like abruptly cuts to, no, we're going to go here.
To Thailand, yeah.
Yeah, to Thailand.
Instead of Russia or whatever it was.
The Himalayas or something weird, right? And he was like, we're going to go here, and then you could hear him like, and then change it. It just starts. And I appreciated that aspect because I forgot that it was mainly a lot of the comedy is just his voiceover. It's just a lot of voiceover and just him doing funny things on the screen. What about the show? Okay, so you didn't know anything about this. You sit down, you watch it, and here's what you're given. What were your first impressions?
So given the fact that it's been a recurring theme with a Televisual event, by the way, it's the name of the podcast. I was expecting it to be, okay, it's going to be like a mockumentary show. It's going to be one of those like, oh, in the universe that this show exists, there's a bunch of episodes, we're seeing some bits of it, and that's what it ended up being. And it did have that whole consistency of, oh, there were episodes that existed that we didn't see. But as that first episode was going, I just realized, this is going to be a travel show, which has a bunch of, conventions to it that has a mass appeal. I think very similar to, we were talking way back when we did an episode on Michael. It's kind of like a road trippy kind of thing, which inherently does have an appeal value because you're seeing the world.
It has a structure.
And again, it has an appeal. But it's got this additional element of, it's got a funny character hosting the whole thing. And whereas these shows kind of tend to have a sort of mature, world knowledge-y kind of vibe to them, the person that hosts it might be this refined person. There's this person here who, as I've described earlier, is a dumb guy,
He's
naive,
a German backpacker, and a lot of the show revolves around his misfortune. Like that whole first episode where he's in Thailand, he keeps going to places that it seems like they're kind of crap because he's not enjoying them. Like when he goes to see the comedy thing and he's forced to tell a joke,
and
it's awkward. And
he goes to that show where he has to shoot ping pong balls out of his bum because he couldn't afford to
because he stayed there too long, so they had to work there. Just to touch on that, what I like about this is he doesn't necessarily meet what you would expect the satire of these travel shows are, because there's the travel show host that either is the refined person you're saying, or you're kind of the Australian beach bum type who's like, I've got knowledge, man, like, I've been around the world and I speak the language, that booty don't need explaining type. Gerhard isn't either of those typical things, but he is something we do recognize, which is German backpacker tourist person. We know that. Whether we've met one in real life or not, we know that image and that idea and that perceived knowledge of what that is. And the idea of having one of these type of people be the host of your travelogue show in itself is actually a really great idea. But what they do with Gerhard and what he actually does and his attitude is more than that. They kind of explore that a bit more with this like childlike naive energy, but also he is a full-grown adult who does understand the world around him. Like, it's not like he's a man-child fully. It's not like he's completely oblivious to, like, cool, crazy things are happening. Like, yeah, there's gags of he didn't recognize Bigfoot was behind him many times.
Yeah.
But there are things where he does have an understanding of, like, yeah, this was shit, and I'm not enjoying myself, but I gotta host the show.
And there are some times where he admits that, like, he was feigning ignorance, like when he was kidnapped by that
militia,
the Pube.
Yeah.
And then he eventually, like, believes, all right, look, guys, you get the deal. I've actually been kidnapped.
Fun fact, Stockholm syndrome. So your first impressions were like, okay, we're in this mockumentary feel. Here we are, and we've got this goofy character, and he's going on these adventures.
Mm-hmm.
And you grew comfortable because it had the structure of his show, and none of the episodes break away from that travelogue structure. It's not like Miles Barlow, right? Where Miles Barlow, it had like bigger continuity and things started to fall apart and things kind of spiraled out of control. And his show structure kind of fell away and fell back in, and that kind of like was very meta. This just kind of, every episode is just like, hello, I'm in this place, and he tells you straight off from the beginning, this is what's going to happen in the episode, and then you just watch those things happen.
The highlights aren't like gags, like, oh, Miles Barlow, next week I'm going to do this.
No, Gerhard just does the things.
Everything he says, we see play out.
I like the fact that when you say this is a mockumentary of this type of thing, a lot of the times, and this is a good and a bad thing, but a lot of times it is like you're expecting like review with Miles Barlow. It's like, this is a review show, but here's the really sharp comedic edge and twist to that idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have ones where it's like Sacha Baron Cohen, where it's like, here's this interview show, but here's the twist of Ali G is this fucking asshole man, right? This, I really do appreciate that there is no big cynical or clever twist on the travelogue format. It is just, here's a travel show, but we got Gerhard Reinke. That's who's hosting it. Like, you know what I'm saying by that? Like, it's not like there's an episode in which the format of the show starts to deteriorate and it becomes like a psycho fever dream nightmare like Miles Barlow did, right?
Yeah.
It sticks to its guns of, this is just a travel show, but what happens if you had an idiot as a host? And that's kind of it. Each episode does have their own narratives, like the one where he goes to try and find his great-grandfather and what happened to him.
In the Amazon.
In the Amazon. So, what were some things that worked about the show for you? Because you seem like you enjoyed it, but like you said, it didn't bowl you over. But what did work for you?
Well, like I said, the very honest traveling. Like, he actually does go to places. He actually does learn a few things about places, and that inherently does have an entertainment value. And obviously, like I said, there are gags always going on, so there's definitely always a strong sense that this is a comedy. I do like the fact that in every episode it does have like a story going on, and they all feel like very different. Like the Amazon one, it has the whole thing about like his actually it was just his grandfather.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
I swear he said great-grandfather at one point too, because he went missing 100 years ago. But then he does just keep calling him grandfather. It's a bit of both, I think. But keep going. He loses a grandfather.
Yeah. And all those plots are very different in scale. Like, that one is a whole like kind of mystery thing going on. What happened to him? Where do I go to find the answers?
There's a betrayal.
And then the Ireland episode, it was just a kind of very simple like, oh, I want to be a writer and look around the country. So there's a lot of variety going on in what we have just described as kind of just being, regular episodes that don't really break away from being these kind of travel shows. It's impressive.
What about the performance? There are no real other characters. It's just Gerhard. The closest you get is Steven Spielberg as the other character. That's like the closest other character you get in the show. But this show relies on that performance, especially like with Sacha Baron Cohen. I keep saying Sacha Baron Cohen, or like Norman Gunston, or like Miles Barlow, where the recurring thing is like this central host character and this performer behind it, and it lives or dies by what you think of that. What did you think of Gerhard Reinke, the character, and that performance?
Yeah, the performance was really consistent throughout the whole thing. Like, he never broke character. I don't think he ever really betrayed what the character was. All of the plots that he follows, his performance and the various things he goes through matches the plot. Like, you know, he doesn't like stop caring about his grandfather throughout the entire Amazon episode. He's always thinking about it and moving towards trying to solve that mystery. Episodes have like running gags. Like I think the last one was the one that had the iguana puppet thing.
Yeah.
Like
He
that...
wanted it, and
that was like a very childish gag. Like he wouldn't talk about it for a while, but then he'd bring it up again, and then eventually the episode would move towards him finally getting it and just achieving a sort of happiness.
I love that performance. I think it's so good. I can't help but think of my brother-in-law who has a pseudo thick German accent just like this guy, and I just, that makes it funny. But this performance, it's great. He nails down the right amount of cartoony, because you have the obvious gags like, and then to heal from my wounds, I went to Barbados or whatever. Yeah. And then you see him on the beach and he's got a mustache and it's like all these silly little cartoony things about Gerhard, the character. And he's got the silly accent and he's saying silly things. And you got like the physical comedy that he's doing. And he's not afraid to get, you know, to take it out. Like you don't see him naked fully, but you see him in like Speedos and...
Mm-hmm.
And it's like showing off his physique and all that. I like the dedication and the, you know, the outright, he's committed. He's committed to this character. As silly as the character is, the character feels lived in and fully realized. And a part of that is the show just takes it that you already know who he is. So that in itself also helps the fact that I feel like I already know who Gerhard Reinke is.
Yeah, it somehow achieves a familiarity with this character, even though... that is the case when you first see him in whatever episode you pick. And
the characterization that the performance has behind it is just great. He has the physical manner he holds with Gerhard. Like we all want to focus on the voice, right? The accent and what he accentuates with it. That's obvious, but I love the look, the hair, the glasses, the outfits or lack of clothes, and just the way he reacts to other people when he's interviewing them or like giving side-eyed glances, or like when Gerhard is when he switches between being the real Gerhard and the host Gerhard, because there are those moments, like you said, like, okay, we know what's going on here. And just the way he transitions between those, sometimes obviously and sometimes it's just kind of like, oh no, there he is. There's the real one, the one who hates his ex-girlfriend. In that one little moment. And we've never heard about that before, but there it is. He just plops that in there, and that's a voiceover. But it's just like these things that I really like about it. And again, the energy. Just the energy he has. Like, he's so enthusiastic as a character, and you need a performer with the ability to transmit that across to the screen. And I got that. I feel like, yes, this guy he's excited about this thing, or he's really not excited, and I believe him. And there's that level that we speak about where it's obvious that this is a fake character, but because of his performance, you can kind of see why people would believe that this is a real German backpacker tourist guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great compliment to have in itself, when you have a very obvious fake comedy character can still come across like, oh, this is a real life guy. There you go, you nailed it, you done it, you did a good job. You know, one of the crazy things was, I don't know if you read the credits when they went on, because they did have extra funny things going on in the credits.
Mm-hmm.
But did you notice who one of the producers were on this show?
No, I don't think I would have.
One of your favorite people, Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then I looked up the actor, Gerhard Reinke. He's worked with Jimmy Kimmel in the past. He did some writing stuff for his show and did a couple of appearances on his show here and there at this period of time. And yeah, they seem to still interact, or at least from my understanding. So, yeah, isn't that fun? A piece of information. Because I saw that name like Jimmy Kimmel, and then it made me go, Jimmy Kimmel was a thing back then? Because I kind of remember a period of time being Australian where I didn't know Jimmy Kimmel existed until the Sarah Silverman song about fucking Matt Damon, and that involved Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
That's how I found out he existed as a thing. So
I think I was the same, actually.
So it's kind of fun when I go back and I'm like, oh, here's the show I like, and Jimmy Kimmel was somehow involved. My joke is, you don't like Jimmy Kimmel. You have a real disdain for him out of the late night show hosts. I mean, you don't have an opinion on many of them, it seems, but every time you're like, Jimmy Kimmel.
It's just based on some videos I saw once. I'm like, oh, I don't like it.
You're just like, it doesn't do it for me.
I can't give you a consistent like rundown of like, oh, his whole career is. It's just based on a few things. I'm like, oh, I didn't like that, and I guess it's just become that I hate him.
He's no James Corden, that's for sure.
I mean, let's be look. I fell for him a little bit more when we did The Boss Baby. That was an unappreciated masterpiece.
Was James Corden in The Boss Baby?
No, Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh, Jimmy Kimmel. Sorry. I said James Corden. You're like, I fell for him. I was like, in The Three Musketeers,
He was
right?
the Three Musketeers, yes.
Where he had bird shit in his mouth. It was great. Back to Gerhard Reinke. I love the running gags, because there are many running gags, some of which are just like, why is this here? Such as one I thought that you would get a kick out of, because it's so silly and so minute, but every episode he hurts his ankle and he screams out loud, "Ah, my ankle!" Did you notice that one? Because it's just kind of there. It doesn't make a big deal out of it, but every episode he hurts his ankle and goes, "Ah, my ankle."
I was noticing that he kept having the same kind of trip.
What a dumbass. Like, I just love the childlike simplicity of it, because it's not the most compelling joke, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, "Ah, my ankle." But the fact that they just keep committing to putting it in there kind of gives it this charm.
Yeah, the fact that he keeps finding himself in situations where he keeps tripping the exact same way and having the same reaction.
Did you have a favorite kind of gag or running gag? Because there's other ones, like he has songs in most of the episodes, or all of them. He has, his kind of voiceover things that he keeps returning back to and stuff like that. He's nutsack hanging out. And...
It's not necessarily that all of the examples of this were, I guess, thematically linked or anything, but in various episodes there would be parts where the tone just gets like really manic. Like the moments I'm thinking of are like when he's fighting Bigfoot and it's like kind of horror-y. There's the part where the monkey like keeps attacking him when he's recording.
They shot him.
And the one that really got me is, I think it was earlier than both of them, like when he finally meets the guy in charge of the terrorist group.
And it's a child.
Yeah. Who asks him about Scooby-Doo.
I thought one that would have got you was, I'm going to go on the vision quest to see my grandfather. Hey, that's not my grandfather, that's somebody else's grandfather. And then they're like, no, nobody's perfect.
And the guy keeps talking.
Why would he go away?
Or back to the terrorist cell, there was always the one dedicated guy that corrected him when he called it pube instead of pube.
Pube, and even in the voiceover, you hear the gun hit him, like, oh. One of my favorite gags, I already mentioned it, was fun fact just pops up on the screen, and they're always gross or horrifying or never fun facts, except for one. One of them was a genuinely fun fact, which was, oh my god, what was the word? There's a word that if you say it forwards and you reverse it, it sounds the same backwards.
Yes, there was that. It was...
It's like, it's one of the few of these things that I can't remember the term they used for it, but I was like, you know what? That is a fun fact. I didn't know that.
Blowhole?
Blowhole. If you reverse it, it sounds like blowhole. I'm like, okay. I'll take your word for it, Gerhard. I haven't checked it myself. I haven't fact-checked it. Maybe Gerhard's lying to me again. But I love just every time, fun fact, it just pops up on the screen. It's always like something gross.
I think it's the only known sonic palindrome or something.
Yeah, well, a few only known ones. But I thought that, I like the fun fact gags because, just to get into my own personal history, when we were at university, I was in a theater group, and I was in the committee for it, and there was a member of that committee who was a friend of, who was somebody I knew was a friend at a period of time. We kind of drifted off, and he was always a guy that would just say, like, not always, when I say always say, what I mean is every now and then he would say, oh, fun fact, and share something. You know, like how we do as humans.
Yeah, it's a common
thing.
It's a common way to introduce something that might not be well known.
Well, I did that once at this committee meeting, and I was like, oh, fun fact. I was going to share something that was actually important, but I was like, oh, fun fact. And then everyone at that committee meeting who were friends with this guy more so than me stopped me dead in my tracks, and I was like, what are you doing? And this wasn't a joke. They were like deadly serious. That's this guy's phrase. You can't use that. And it was like he had a copyright on this phrase, and they were very upset and very annoyed. And I tried to be like, oh, haha, very funny. Either way, fun fact, that they were like deadly serious, and they were very annoyed at me. And for the rest of the committee meeting, I was shunned because I used fun fact, which will forever be his phrase, apparently. So every time I hear fun fact, a little part of me relives that memory, and I was like, I lived in an actual psychosis in that point, because it felt like I was in a room full of literal crazy people who were like telling me, the sane person, that I did something wrong. I'm like, no, I know what's right here. This is a normal human phrase.
When you told me that story, I too always think about your story about it. I'm like, man, fun fact. It's just such a common thing. Every time you talk about being in that committee, there's always like bizarre stories.
And that's always when Gerhard did fun fact, I'm like, oh, whoa, did Gerhard know that this is not his to take? This is someone else's. Like, it's always amusing. So
someone who was probably a child at that point.
Did you have any standout other comedy moments or gags that really like took you by surprise or made you laugh in particular?
Well, the aforementioned iguana puppet salesman thing, which that was like his sitcom arch nemesis.
My arch nemesis, and every time he interacted with him, the guy was like, "Oh no, and that's how he was evil." Oh no.
Oh yeah, he had a whole thing about like bargaining, and like this guy just wouldn't bargain. It's like, no, $2. It has to be $2.
He doesn't do haggles.
Yeah,
this guy, I love that one. I one of the ones that just cracked me. I was in tears laughing at this was when he was, and it's in the last episode too, where he was like, to prove your masculinity, your macho nature, you have to hold on to this thing that electrocutes you and see how much voltage you can handle. And he was talking about that, and then he's like, for the cost of my masculinity, I had like brain damage or whatever, and he's just standing there like drooling, and he's like, oh, but don't worry. Quickly, I got back up and I started getting into the dance scene. And it's just like him comatose, catatonic, drooling in a rave party. And that, I don't know, it just got me. That one got me. There's lots of gags like that. But I like what you mentioned. We keep saying like, oh, it's kind of normal. But they really do have their weird, surreal moments. Like there's songs constantly throughout the show just keep popping up. One of my favorite song was his whole Ireland tour song, in which he's just singing about that journey he's going on and his book he wants to write, and just how pathetic he is in that episode as well. Like his little German interpretation of what Irish people wear was very amusing as well.
That also had a great running gag of like most of the people smashing a bottle over his head.
Yeah, glass. They would glass him.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were somebody else. And then they'd lift him up.
The same guy just over and over again.
I thought your favorite secondary character would be the owner of the house he was staying at in Ireland, that woman who like looked after him while he was in a coma.
Who kept speaking like wooden tones.
Very wooden acting, and she's like, Gerhard, are you okay? Gerhard, and then the doctor comes in and he's like, how long has he been like this? Oh, 120 days. Like that whole sequence of events was great. I loved it very, very much. And then he got out of his coma when they were like, he owes me this much money.
That Island episode, yeah, was a lot of fun characters.
And his physical therapy that he had going back into the bar, and just so many great things like that. One that kills me is when he gets the cold sore from kissing the Blarney Stone. He gets the herpes, and then he's like, to cure himself, he just pisses off to the Bahamas, and he puts that in a part of his whole like of Ireland. Was I really enjoyed that part of my trip to Ireland, the part where he wasn't there
twice.
Yeah, twice. What else stands out to you about this show? Because it is a weird little one to just throw at you and be like, here you go.
I find it kind of funny that 2 of the episodes were in California.
Yes.
It's like it's only 6 episodes, but 2 of them are in like the same part of the world.
Yeah, but one of them leaned towards the kind of Mexican culture, I guess.
Yeah, the peninsula right at the south, whereas the other was like Los Angeles.
Oh, we gotta talk about Steven Spielberg properly. We keep mentioning I keep saying Steven Spielberg's in this, but could you detail Steven Spielberg's character arc in this show? His arc in the manga here?
Yes. So what was the first? It wasn't the Ireland episode. It was the one.
Amazon.
When
he was going, I think it was Amazon. When he was going up to. not Amazon. I can't remember. It was one of the ones in South America, right?
Did he go to Bolivia?
Bolivia, of
Yes.
course. When he was around Bolivia, we want to say,
Yeah. He went to some place in Bolivia, and he was talking about how it's a very popular place for tourists or people to visit. And then he just shows like, oh, and even Steven Spielberg is here. And there's this guy that looks like Steven Spielberg, just like,
hello,
and then that's just the end of Steven Spielberg in the Bolivia episode. So we think like, oh, okay, he's just chance encounter Steven Spielberg.
Okay, fair enough.
And then
isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
What a fun fact.
And then in the next episode, Los Angeles, Steven Spielberg is like a recurring villain in that episode. Like at first, it's because he's on a part of the beach that is owned by Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, it's part of his villa or whatever.
Beach
house.
Who
beats him.
Yeah, who simultaneously wants him to take his things and leave, and also stop coming to take your things because it's on my beach. And in this scene, Steven Spielberg, he's being a dick to him, and
again, this isn't actually Steven Spielberg.
It isn't.
This is just some guy who looks like Steven Spielberg.
And Gerhard, he's not like creating any lasting damage. Like after Gerhard leaves this place,
he never looks back.
He never looks back. He and Steven Spielberg are not realistically going to
meet
again or have a beef. And then the last half of the episode is about him wanting to find Bigfoot.
Because why wouldn't you?
He goes to a Bigfoot place.
And he meets all these hippies that get their own title cards and name drops. That was amazing.
Gets a dog as well.
And the dog too, yeah.
And then he actually has an encounter with Bigfoot, and it's one of the surreal sequences.
After a series of missing Bigfoot in obvious locations, yeah.
And it's very clear that this Bigfoot isn't just some wild creature because it can somewhat drive a car.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it knows how to reverse and activate everything, and it crashes into something, and then eventually he confronts it and unmasks it, and it's just Steven Spielberg.
Which is great because it ties into the Scooby-Doo conversation in the other one with the kid, because he's literally unmasked the monster and it's like, old man Spielberg! Which is great because it's got like, whether that was meant to or not, that's kind of like in there. That's in the show's identity.
You know what? Yeah, I was thinking like when he met all the hippie characters, I'm like, oh, there was some like hippie imagery with Scooby-Doo.
He had them. He had his hippie van that he lived in with these stoners, and he had his social anxiety moment.
And he had a dog with him.
And he got high, and he was like, whoa, freaking out, and he just leaves. He's driving all over the road. I love one of my favorite moments in that episode. I love the Bigfoot episode. That's probably my favorite episode in the show. That one's just consistently got a lot going on that it really appeals to me. Is when he interviews one of the Bigfoot experts, and the Bigfoot expert is explaining how it's physically impossible for a human to replicate the walk of Bigfoot, the gait, the gait, and he tries to not replicate it, like the way that old man is trying to see, you can't do it, like the way he's doing that, and God being like, yeah, obviously, I mean, look at me, and he's like doing the exact same thing. Just that in itself was very funny. Then every now and then they would cut back to footage of that. Oh, that's another recurring gag. Reenactment.
Yes. It happened mostly early on, but it was always great.
But then in one of the later ones, it came back. Just like when he's getting physically beaten the shit out of him. It's like reenactment.
That might be, some of my favorite stuff, especially the island one. St. Patrick shooing away all the snakes.
Ouch. I don't know. The first one where it's explaining Buddha, and then just got some fucking old dude smoking.
The basic thing is none of them are acting in the reenactment very well.
They're just them in modern clothes, just doing it with shitty effects or props. The St. Patrick one with the snakes is particularly great.
I don't want to see you again.
I never want to see you again. Out, damn snakes. That was great. They have a great sense to them. And what works about Gerhard is it's only 6 episodes.
Yeah.
It doesn't overstay its welcome. The episodes aren't too long. And like I've said, they're well paced. Like they're quickly paced. They don't linger too long. They don't try to make any grand statements or try to take people down a peg or anything. They're just having a silly thing. It's just silly fun. Here's Gerhard's grandfather doing the scene from Silence of the Lambs. Isn't that kind of funny? Where he's like, would you fuck me? I would fuck me, in his old-timey footage.
Yeah.
And See, that's what it's there for. Just that chuckle, like, yeah. Or here we're gonna do the Benny Hill theme while Gerhard's being chased by these tribes people.
Yeah, a slightly off Benny Hill theme.
Well, it merges with the circus theme, the circus march. It goes from the
Well, the Benny Hill theme does that as well.
Oh, does it? I can't remember if it blurs.
If
It's been a while since I've heard the Benny Hill theme.
You mostly
for
hear the
that
beginning
long.
part, yeah.
Right.
But
Okay,
it
you got
actually
me.
does have the circus part.
Okay, that's on me. I'm not a Benny Hill expert like Bartek. Bartek's the Benny Hill expert. I'm more of a Morecambe and Wise expert. But yeah, I liked that they did. Like, it just has a fun energy to it. And like you said, it's not bowling you over. It's not the most impressive thing. You enjoy it, but it's like not the greatest show ever made. But but sometimes you just need it's good.
Yeah.
It's not great. It's not the greatest thing ever. Like, I think it's pretty great just because of how innocent it is. It's just so innocent feeling. Like, it's rude and it's crude in its parts. Like, come on. Did you get a chuckle out of his testicle hanging out and they pixelated at any point?
Yeah, well, again, like the whole thing, there's always something funny going on. It's never shit.
No. I like, they know at a certain point too that a lot of this is carried by his voiceover. And they do great gags with that, such as when he's going back to the Amazon one, where he's like, these people used to be savages when my great-grandfather or grandfather was around, and they're monsters. But nowadays, they're nice, civilized people. Come here. Yeah, it's a great time. And then you see, like, it comes up that it was a sponsor thing from their tourism board. They play into the structure really well without having to break the structure of the show. Like, with that one, when it was like the mystery was solved because he remembered a context clue that was very obvious of cut back to the footage of the kid wearing a shirt with a giant mustache on it. And he's like, of course, they lied to me.
Same shape as his grandfather's mustache, yeah.
Yeah, they lied to me. And he goes back there and he confronts a small child wearing a big mask on their head. And he's like, yo, take me there now. And they're like, okay. Like, and they just walk off. Yeah, Gerhard Reinke, it's simple, it's effective, it's lean, mean. I just like that it exists. Because, think about it, 2003, Comedy Central. You saw all the shows it was advertising at the credits or when it came back from ad breaks. Crank Yankers, The Chappelle Show, South Park, all of these big titans that have stayed around or have had a bigger legacy. And then you have a little show like this that just exists, which is not, like, I'm not saying it's forgotten completely, but look at this. Go to IMDb right now. How many episodes does the show have? Oh, 0, because they haven't entered any episodes individually? Yeah. Oh, okay. Like, oh, who's the cast in it? Is there anyone else? Are they going to credit the guy who played Spielberg? Oh, no, just Gerhard. Oh, and Bigfoot. Are they going to credit that one guy who played, like, the professor about the dick cream era? No, just Gerhard and Bigfoot. And they just say California episode for Bigfoot. What's that? Go to the California episode IMDb. Oh, it doesn't exist. Because Gerhard, like, that's how, like, limited the appreciation for this is. Get it on DVD. Oh, go fuck yourself. You're not going to get it on DVD. Why is it on YouTube? Evidently, there's a level of this show has not a great amount of, like, legacy and respect. So, Comedy Central, I don't know what their view is. I don't care. But, like, you would expect for a Comedy Central show, you wouldn't expect to find it on YouTube fully. But here you are. And the one I linked you, Bartek, that's not the only person who has uploaded full episodes of Gerhard. It was just one of the first ones I found. There's multiple playlists of full episodes of Gerhard Reinke. And why? Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think this show kind of... I mean, it's a proper American comedy show on a big network. Why do you think it has just kind of fallen into this crevice like Double the Fist did, an Australian comedy show? We're used to that with Australian comedy shows where they're little and they have this kind of attitude towards it where it's like, it's done and we're not really going to preserve it in any way. Why do you think Gerhard Reinke's Wanderlust kind of has this effect as well?
Maybe people just don't know about it. Like you said, IMDb, usually even for minor things, does at least have listings for every episode, or at least like tell you numerous people that are in it and how many episodes they are specifically in, even which ones they are.
Yeah.
This show... Not at all. I did look at the IMDb and there was shockingly less than I was expecting even for a minor thing.
Yeah. Do you think Gerhard Reinke could come back as a character, do you think you could bring this character back into the forefront? Recently, Borat came back. No one expected Borat to come back, but he came back.
Yeah.
Do you think Borat could not Borat. Do you think Gerhard Reinke could come back, and in what capacity do you think he could?
Yeah, maybe he could come back. There's a bit of an older character, but like still kind of sticking to what he was doing back then.
What do you think? Like, how do you think he could do it? Like, what do you think? Because we said with Posh Nosh, now that's a YouTube thing. You could put that on YouTube. Like, you could have little 5-minute things on YouTube. Do you think it could benefit from like that kind of affair? Like, do you think it needs to have full half-hour long episodes, or do you think you could have just sketches of Gerhard visiting a place or Gerhard doing another type of show? Because I think I was looking on YouTube, there's just random sketches, like 4-minute things from the actor who played Gerhard on his YouTube channel of Gerhard Reinke's America, where he's just traveling around America doing little things.
I think in one of the YouTube comments it mentioned something about him going to Tokyo.
Yeah.
I think they were saying it's not that great, but it exists somewhere.
Do you think that you could put him in that sphere of putting him just as little 5-minute, 10-minute sketches on a YouTube platform? Or do you think maybe a streaming service for like a little show could do? What do you think? Or do you think don't even bother at all?
I mean, I feel like the potential is there if you can still have like the same kind of, tone and writing. Like I said, there was always something funny going on. There was clearly effort that was put in that succeeded in that way, in this way that I really respect. So
when's he going to come to Australia?
That's a good question.
When's he going to come here?
How often did he come to the Southern Hemisphere in the show?
Exactly.
I don't think at all.
Well, he went to South America.
Is Thailand South Hemisphere?
I think it's roughly right. And he went to South American area as well. What about... I would love to see Gerhard Reinke come back in some way. I think YouTube is the best place for him to be. Some easy like site like that. I think you could have him do this kind of thing. If you wanted to expand him into bringing him back for like a streaming service like not Netflix or whatever, I think you could easily do it. I think he just needs to have a purpose in it. Like, he can still do his travel show, but maybe there's a stronger purpose of what he's doing, like how I don't know if you've watched it, but there's that travel show that the guy from Tickled, the documentary Tickled, has on Netflix, Dark Tourist. He has his travel show, and that's kind of like a comedy but real life travel showy kind of thing. And I could see Gerhard Reinke kind of doing something like that, but fictionalized. And you could even have, again, this kind of is like, well, this goes against in a way of what Gerhard is. I mean, you want to keep him simple and effective and kind of naive and innocent, but you could have it be like, you could hit harder with him making statements about the world at large and or the format of television. Maybe even have it that travel shows don't exist anymore. And he's like the last one, because really, they don't really exist anymore in the way that they did when he was doing this back in 2003. Things have changed. People have vlogs. Where's Gerhard Reinke's vlogs?
Yeah, maybe you could have a more like running narrative kind of thing going on.
I mean, yeah, where he has to try and like find his great-great-grandmother.
Or like, yeah, whatever the show ends up being, maybe there's like a central mission statement that he's always working towards. I don't know.
Yeah. Anything else you want to discuss about Gerhard Reinke's Wanderlust? Other than his coca addiction?
He worked very hard to get over that, and he was tempted many, many times.
He was a victim.
I think Buddha did say that man has 108 temptations, and I guess coca is one of them.
So dumb. Anything else you want to say about Gerhard Reinke?
No, I think we got it. Do you have anything?
Not that I can think of. I would love to talk to someone involved in this show, because it is a thing I think about of like, this existed. This came to be. Jimmy Kimmel was involved.
I was about to say, talk to Jimmy.
Talk to Jimmy. This guy who played Gerhard, he hasn't got a large catalog behind him on IMDb. Like, he seems to be more leaning towards being a writer, it seems, more so than an actor. So I kind of want to know, like, how did this like, how did this get made? Like, where did this come from? Like, where did Gerhard Reinke come from for a start? Like,
Yeah.
where did that character start? Was it just you made a script with this character, or was it something that used to exist on stage, or what? Because
Yeah, maybe it's a character he just used to play with his friends or something.
it's a voice, right? You could just see it being like, hello, it's me, Gerhard, on the phone. You could see it being that kind of character. But I'd love to hear kind of like a behind the scenes thing too, because like you said, he actually travels to the places.
Yeah, that's true.
Or at least that's how it seems, because also they do have that thing where it's like, nice stock footage of the thing, because we couldn't be bothered to get footage of it, right? But it seems like he travels to the actual places, and again, with this cheap little not shitty, but like this cheap little comedy show where it's like out of nowhere, like it feels like a weird thing. Where did they get the budget to do, like, you know what I mean? Like, here I am, I'm pitching my comedy show. I want to have it be where I travel around the world doing things. Oh, that's a bold pitch. Comedy Central just gave him that? I guess so. But like, these are the things I want to know, because when you look up Gerhard Reinke, there's just no real information other than it existed. And I think that's a shame. I think there's some, I reckon that there's some interesting stories that could be hiding behind the scenes of this that I just haven't found to be revealed anywhere. I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, maybe if there's like an interview he did somewhere with, I don't know, some podcast.
I would hope so. Where's Gerhard's podcast?
That could be another version, yeah. Or
I
maybe
wanna,
like
I want to see his testicle, though.
Oh, we can draw that.
I don't want to hear it.
You don't want to hear the testicle?
I don't want to hear it in a podcast. I want to see it pixelated on the screen. It wouldn't be Gerhard without his pixelated testicle hanging out.
The one good time to be pro-censorship.
Oh, yeah. The pro-censorship moments really worked in this show's favor, didn't it? It was wonderful. Like the shooting the ping pong balls out of his ass. That was great. My wife walked out of the room and then came back, and she came back to that and didn't know what was happening, because, again, the show moves quickly. And she was like, what the fuck? And I'm like, oh, Rachel, obviously this, and this happened, and you missed it in the span of 30 seconds. That's on you.
Yeah, he's earning the money that he was meant to spend.
Oh, one last thing. I love in each episode, there's always like the local person he forms a bond with in each city or each place. And the first episode, I really liked the what was it? The guy driving him. I don't know what that was called.
Was it
the tuk-tuk driver?
Yeah, the tuk-tuk driver.
Tuk-tuk driver. I liked him because Gerhard's saying like all of this stuff and he's clearly not understanding what the fuck he's talking about, and just like continues on. It was really nice at the end of the credits they had more with that guy between him and Gerhard, because that was fun. It was cute. I don't know. It was amusing. So Gerhard Reinke's Wanderlust. Let us know what your thoughts and opinions are on the show. Have you seen it? You can hit us up on those social medias, Facebook and Twitter, Spit and Polish Presents, and you can email us at spitandpolished@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts, opinions on this. Is it a televisual event? Is it worth preserving, seeing again, finding out more information on, or is it this overrated thing that deserves to be left in the dark, in the past?
And do we recommend it, Ryan?
I do.
I do too.
Do.
Yeah.
All right, boo-boo.
Do like Ryan and pace out the episodes. Don't just watch them in one sitting.
I don't know. They're pretty fast. Like I can see that energy. I don't tend to sit down and watch multiple episodes of like this kind of show in one sitting, but you can easily do it.
You can. I did it.
It's a comfort show. That's it. It's a comfort show.
Mm-hmm.
Well, until next time, travelers.
the travelers of the podcast realm.
Yes. Remember, fun fact. Fun fact is a normal phrase that human beings use, and you do not own it. You can just say it. So anyone can say the phrase fun fact